to the consumer, and a lot of what he had to say mimics our own government's behavior when it comes to handling money. Consumer credit increased by $25.5 billion in July, which was double the expectation. Their spending acts like they just don't care anymore. They're giving up, right? Who can afford these credit card rates? There's some of them are as high as 28%. And as our next guest rightfully points out, nobody chooses to pay fees that high. The whole situation is verging on being unmanageable. Now, we thought we'd bring him on as our next guest and get it straight from him. Please welcome to the show, David Stryzewski. David, thanks for being on. And I think that was probably the most important thing you wrote down in your report this morning, was that who chooses to pay 28%? Nobody really chooses. That means they got to do what they got to do. And as I think it was Ernest Hemingway says when they asked him how he went bankrupt, if at first it was just a little bit, then all of a sudden it was all at once. And I feel like we're going that way, don't you?
Absolutely. And it's great to be with you. You know, as the consumer goes, so goes our economy. If our economy is 70% made up of the GDP and the spending of these consumers, you know, everyone's like, hey, GDP is looking wonderful. Well, yeah, it is. But guess what we're doing? We're financing inflation sitting here with our credit cards. You know, when all the stimmy checks started showing up in 21, everyone paid down their credit. And so we all know that. We saw it. It was a record thing. No one wants credit card debt. But then what ended up happening is, guess what? 22, we just went off to the races and started spending. We blew $2.9 trillion of saving as the middle class. And now we're sitting here at that record debt. And so, I think that things could deteriorate relatively quick here in our economy, just based upon the consumer maxing out cards, sitting here at these record highs. And just like you pointed out, some are maybe as high as 30%. I mean, I just don't understand how you get out of that. You know, it probably should be considered, I mean, at least in my opinion, criminal maybe to charge more than 10% in the United States, where we do have liquid markets and we've got a lot of things. But you're just literally imprisoning people if you put them under 30% like that. But everyone's just print and spends, just like we were modeled by the federal government.
There's a word for it. We've done it on this show. I can't remember. It just popped in my mind. I couldn't remember this morning, but it's just called doom spending. When you think it's all over anyway, I mean, you might as well go out on a high. I think that's what they look like. And to your point, yeah, we've seen a lot of hotels do well, but they're actually starting to slip. If you look, the hotel numbers aren't good. The foot traffic's not good. But then everybody tells me how great TSA numbers are. But, those were always booked, sometimes 6 months, maybe 12 months ago, right? So those are bookings. I mean, there's not a lot of people that decide to fly tomorrow today, right? So I don't think you can take TSA as a great, look at how people are spending their money, because that's money that they were spending 6 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, 12 months ago, whenever they booked that travel. So I really don't think the consumer is in a really good spot. I think that probably 80% of the country is in a recession right now. I do think that would warrant maybe some interest rate cuts, but the Fed's mismanaged this so bad, and I'm sorry, everybody, for talking about the Fed again, but I think they've mismanaged it so bad, David, that they're going to be between this rock and a hard place. They want to, let middle America have a little bit of a breather with some of their credit card debt, but at the same time, they could spike inflation again.
Well, here's something important, and I think that you bring something up. We should be critical of those who have influence over our lives in significant ways. What do I mean by that? Jerome Powell is out here, and the moves that he makes, the statements that he makes, literally affect your retirement, your outcome, your world. And so when they get it wrong, well, I think it's important that we are critical, or at least have the ability to second guess some of this stuff. I think Powell's been wrong literally at every part of this thing, and I don't see that changing right now. In fact, what we're at risk of doing is cutting rates while we're literally at all-time highs. What happens when you cut rates at all-time highs and interest-sensitive things like tech stocks and real estate, again, all-time highs? They're going to go through the roof. This is massively inflationary. In fact, I think inflation's for sure going up, and there's nothing Powell can do. This is why I think that, he's only going 25 basis points, not to just keep going down that conversation. But we've got a lot of weakness right now in our economy. And so I'm not exactly sure what they're trying to figure out and what they're trying to, to goose the market with here in this election cycle. But, if they go in more than 25 basis points, that's going to be seen as very political. But, they've been kind of doing that here for the last several years anyway. So
it's criminal. He got it wrong when it was at 9.1%, transitory. But then now he has to put people out of work to get it back down to 2%. Well, so his mistake is now having to be suffered by all these people that lose their jobs, number one. And number two, I'll put it out there one more time, David. I'll put it out there on our air. If you can, I'll fly you in first class and put you up for the night if you can come in here and tell me how cutting rates is going to help bring inflation down. Ain't happening. All right. Thanks a lot for coming on. You were the perfect person to have.